back. Welcome back, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone had a good weekend. Hope everyone was able to catch both those Monday night games last night. That was pretty cool. So, got a full packed episode here today. So, we're really going to talk about does your current annual salary really determine your future and your financial situation? So, this is basically saying, are you able to invest even if you don't make per se like 60K, 100K, things like that? Does your current financial situation deter you from investing, or is it your habits that is deterring you from investing? So that is what I'm going to lay out here today in this episode. But before I do, we're going to go through a few updates. Dallas Cowboys versus Green Bay, 40-40 overtime. I think that was the highest scoring tie, or one of the highest scoring ties in NFL history. Great game. I did actually fall asleep closer towards overtime. I'm old, newborn, definitely feeling it. So didn't make it through the entire game. I actually woke up and watched them kick the field goal to go into overtime, and then I ended up watching overtime. So really entertaining game, first half and OT. Dallas offense looks good even without CD, which gives me more optimism when CD comes back. Dallas, they're got to fix the defense. Jerry's talking about he got them 2 picks, bro. You got to do something with the picks. We need a corner. We need a safety. We need to go out and get, we need something. Our defense just is not it right now. So we need to do something on that. Moving over to fantasy football, my team stink. Injuries are really derailing my teams. My wife actually just beat me in both leagues. So yeah, I'm gonna hear about that when she wakes up this morning, checks her phone. She gets a little congratulations and a little pep talk saying how good she did when she won. So I'm definitely gonna hear that from her here today. So, I had neighbors in a lot of leagues. He's down. I have CD in some leagues. He's down. Tyreek Hill just had a crazy injury last night. So, if you have Waddle, you have Achane stock up. So crazy because I actually just moved Achane because my team's so riddled with injuries. The only way I was going to get anybody in return was trying to move my best player. So I ended up having to move Achane. I like the return that I got. It's a risk because you know Achane's floor, right? Achane's floor, his ceiling. So it is a risk, but I had to do something because whether if I did this or not, I was losing the next week anyway because I'm so down bad with buys and injuries coming through. But yeah, so fantasy football is, a couple of my leagues I am bouncing back. I started like 0-2 in a lot of leagues. I'm 2-2 now in some of those leagues. I'm actually 4-0 in one league. So 4-0 in one league. I drafted a lot of upside in that league, and it's starting to pay off in that league. Now we're going to move over to Tyler Hero. So going over to the NBA. So we actually just conducted our dynasty draft last night. So ready for that. Hero is going to be sidelined to start the year. I forgot exactly how long, but I know he is going to be sidelined, which it gives Jakoponis some run. So this is going to give him some tick early on in the season. Rookie out of Illinois. I liked what I saw on his college tape. I like what I saw in one of the G League games. Not the most athletic cat on there, but he can get shifty. He has a good step back. He gets to the paint. He knows when to make good passes. He does turn the ball over a lot, but I think you can, the NBA, the coaching staff and the Heat organization, I feel like they can kind of reel that in, right? So you turn over the ball, you ain't going to be playing, and I think he's going to learn that early on. So the turnovers in college, I'm not really too worried about moving over to the NBA because they're going to obviously ask him to do less in the NBA as well. Like he's not going to have the same role that he had in college. So, it's going to take the ball out of hands a little less. But either way, I'm excited to see what he does. Davion Mitchell, I like the pickup. I think he's a solid guard. He's a backup. He shouldn't really be starting. He's not really a starter on a playoff contender. And that's what has me worried about Miami is that we have talent, but the talent doesn't translate, So even when we were going to the finals, we're still 5th, 8th seed. So Miami has to find something. They have to bring in someone to kind of get them over that hump and be an actual contender in the East. So Malachi's been starting football, so he's been playing some flag football. I volunteered week 1 to help the team, and I guess now I'm offensive coordinator. So they're 2-0. It's kind of cool, being out there on the field with him, just enjoying that time with him and whatnot. I know he appreciates it, so it's all love. It's all pretty cool. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna dive into the video. Again, does your current annual salary determine what you can do in your future? So that's the topic. So here we go.
Disclaimer: the information provided on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered as financial advice. We are not licensed financial professionals, and any opinions shared are based on personal experiences and research. As always, do your own due diligence and consult with a certified financial advisor or professional before making any investment decisions.
How much do you need to make to invest? Well, there's no actual answer for that because there's a couple things that plays into it. What I mean by that is what's your budget looking like? What's your debt? What's your current situation? Do you have kids? Do you not? Single mother? Like there's so many different avenues that you can go around. But end of the day, the numbers are the numbers. Get your budget, build that budget out, write everything down, track your spending, and then that will let you know how much you can invest. And it also lets you know how much you can cut back. That's the whole point about, this channel is the mental preparation it takes to do this, right? So, how much do you need to start? Well, let's break it down. All right, well, let's say I want to start in the stocks. Well, open up brokerage accounts free, right? So you don't need to charge a fee to open a brokerage account. VOO, S&P 500, one of the biggest, that tracks 500 companies in the United States. That is one of the best ways to get an indication of how the stock market is doing. VOO costs $1. You can put $1 to start if you wanted to. Real estate. So real estate that's way more expensive, right? So getting into real estate is expensive. They do have. I was actually on a call today, and one of the guys on the call was talking about some programs in place and things like that, and how heading to City Hall, they'll be able to give you some information on some housings in the area and what programs your state may have to offer. So I thought that was pretty cool to listen to that on the call today. He really was giving a lot of gems in what he was saying today. But here in West Virginia too, first time home buyers, you have a 0 down payment. Yeah, you want to go with a down payment, but if you're looking to get into something and it's like something that you can afford, something that you feel like it's for you and your family, you want to settle down with, you're ready to move, you have everything in place to move, all right, then, if you want to do that, 0 down payment move. That's how we got this house, 0 down payment, because where we're at, our lease was up. And when our lease was up, they were like, hey, you can do month to month, but it was going to be $18 a month. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that at the time. I'm not doing that. So I was looking at the news, and I was just looking into, and I came across mortgages. And I was like, mortgage rates are low. So what does that mean? Did a little digging. Man, I said, all right. Went to my wife. I said, look, let's just buy a house. Right? So we were married at the time, but obviously we were trending in that direction. But I was like, let's just buy a house. She said, what do you mean? I said, think about it. I was like, with the rates so low, the mortgage payment that we have will be much less than any rent payment that we would have. So I was like, we just have to make sure we get that rate. So we went to work. One of my boys, shout out to Walter, who helped us get this house. He did a lot of work on the back end to make sure he gave us the right lender and everything. And next thing you know, 0 down payment, a rate under 3%, and a very good deal on the house. So we were able to get in, and we were just fine. I was actually paying lower in mortgage than I was in my rent at the time, right? So the money I pay now in mortgage is much lower than I would pay in rent. And over that time, I have built an egg nest to where if something does happen to the house, we would be okay to cover that expense, right? So we would be okay to cover that expense. So, if the water heater went down or something like that, when you have a house, you're going to have to do repairs constantly in the house. Having a house is not cheap. So, it's not like renting where something breaks, your landlord comes, they pay for it, they send a contractor out, they come and fix it. Like, no, you were actually the one doing this, and you are the one that actually has to come out and pocket fix it. It's your house, right? So you got to make sure you're mentally prepared for that and financially prepared for that when you move. Luckily, we haven't had any major breaks. Knock on wood, we haven't had any major incidents, but you're gonna have to start saving for that day because that day is, it's gonna come at some point. So might as well be ready for that situation. But anyway, are you investing in crypto? Same thing with crypto. You can go on Robinhood. You can go into Bitcoin. You can start with a dollar, like with crypto. Owning a business is a little more expensive when you come to starting it up and everything like that. Sole proprietorship maybe not so much, but when you go into LLC, corporations, taxes, fees, a lot of legal things, a lot of admin work. There's things that always pop up. Money that always pops up that you may have to owe. So it's important that you really are mentally prepared for that as well, because that's going to be a lot more expensive than what you think, especially if you want to build that brand. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to just open this business, just come get it. Like, no, if you're not putting the work in, then nothing's going to come out of it. Like, trust me, like the first time we launched our business, Dot knew I was doing, had no idea. Over the last couple of years, during the relaunch, I learned so much, built so much, understanding that this is a process and understanding that this takes time to build, and it takes a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of sacrifice to build as well. So, end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much you make. Like, I've been at the same job 6 years. Obviously, I got promotions along the way. Still was vested in my 401k since I was 21. So, because I knew that was important to make sure I get started early. So, and I'm starting to see it even now, like, 6 years later, like the gains that I have, I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, wait until I'm 65. I'm 20. I still got plenty of time. I still got plenty of checks to come in. I'm like, man, like, wait until I get to that retirement age where I'm going to be at. Like, so that's why it's good to start early as possible. And we're actually going to go over that. So why it's better to start early and why, that's the perfect time to not make excuses because you're young. All right. So yes. So we just went over how much do I need to make to invest. So understanding that the economy is crazy out here. Stock market's doing good. The economy's not, in my opinion. I don't think the stock market's a good indication of the economy is doing. And I feel like if you're of my age or younger or trying to get started in life, you're kind of feeling that. You're kind of feeling the more expensive groceries, the more expensive housing, like the more expensive, gas prices, well, at least here isn't too bad right now. So, not really too bad right now. But, the cost of living is going up, and that's one thing you have to, but that's even more the reason to invest, right? Because your dollar that you have now is not going to be worth the dollar that in 5 years. Right? The dollar you have now is not going to be the same value in 5 years because inflation. Government prints money. When government prints money, that devalues the dollar. So, what does that mean? I have to find a way to keep up with inflation. So, if inflation's 2-3% a year, I have to find a way to, have my money grow more than 2-3% a year. And on average, the stock market, even VOO, gives you a 10% return on your investments. And honestly, if you look, I was looking, through Fidelity, and I was thinking, the S&P returns have been kind of higher since COVID. Like, if you look at the returns since COVID, they've been over 10%. But I still think, as a conservative number, we're going to go 10%. That's still beating inflation. Right? So that's still beating inflation. That's the goal. So that should motivate you more to try to, get right. Because let's be honest, none of us wants to live check to check. We want to spend time with our families. We want to go do things. And unfortunately, the only way that we can do that is with money. Like, if we're being honest, that's really it. Yeah, you can do things without money. But if you want to go on trips, vacations, you want to have those really big, memories, core memories like that, it does cost money. It costs money to get your kids into sports. It costs money to get their equipment. Like everything costs money. It costs money to train them, like to get them trained. So understanding that, it should motivate you more to start investing because just how Ian and them say on Earn Your Leisure, give you a 5-year hold, and they're saying like look at your returns. And honestly, I'll be at 2 years fully in next February, and I'm seeing my returns now, and I'm like it's actually kind of crazy, just within the 2-year period. So I can only imagine, what we're gonna do in 5 years. So that's the thing. It's like you need to start investing when you're young because that's the perfect time to start investing. Like your true superpower is time. I know that because I've been experiencing myself. Can it be difficult? Yes. College expenses, entry level pay, things like that, housing market, groceries, how I just talked about, understanding. So, but guess what? We, all of us who are young, well, majority of us who are young realistically goes through that, right? So majority of us who are young realistically go through that. I went through that. There's plenty of people who went through that. 80% of millionaires are first-time generation millionaires. So that means they created their own wealth. So they had college expensive just how I did. They had entry-level pay just how I did. But over time, you just have to figure it out because you start to build those habits. I had terrible habits early on, and I was still able to invest. Now, did it hinder me because of debt? Yeah. But, my habits now is going to clear that debt, a lot sooner than expected for me to then be young enough to still even invest and have a really solid return closer to that retirement age, closer to my 40, even my 40s, right? So, as long as the market's doing good, as long as the states are doing good, the market to me is rigged. It's rigged to keep going up. There's too many powerful people, too many institutions, too much politics that goes into it for it not to keep going up. So that's why I believe in the stock market. The stock market is not gambling, in my opinion. If you do it smart, index funds, ETFs, VOO, like I was saying, right? Stock market crashes, it has 100% return bounce back. That sounds like an investment to me. Doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like a gamble to me. It sounds more like an investment to me because it's legit 100% bounce back. A couple things that you can do to get started while you're young. Again, these are all things that I wish I would have done when I was younger, right? So, do you live with your parents rent free, right? So, if you live with your parents rent free, this is the perfect opportunity for you to get an idea of, having roommates or having a actual responsibility or paying rent. So, this is what I'm saying. I would, go to your parents. Hey, what's the mortgage? You don't pay the mortgage. Just say, hey, what's the mortgage I'd like to chip in. Let's just say your parents say no, but just say you're just interested, right? And they say, all right, well the mortgage is $1,200. All right, well there's you and your parents, right? Take $400, put it to a side. Like $400 sounds like a lot until you actually start doing it. But you have to start getting into the idea of this is what I'm gonna need to do, if not more, when I move out, right? So take that $400, put $200 in your savings account, put $200 into the market. And I promise you, you put that $200 in the VOO every month from when you're younger to when you're ready to move out, man, you can be able to pull out that VOO and, put furniture in your house, help you with a down payment. Like, these are things that I really wish I would have known about when I was younger. Even then, does your parents cover your medical insurance? If you're young, you probably don't know how much medical insurance costs. Medical insurance can probably cost $160, if not way more per month, right? So if your parents cover you under their medical insurance, take $50, put it to the side. Because again, every 2 weeks, take $50, put it to the side. Because when you move out or when you turn 26 and you need medical insurance, that's coming out your check anyway. How many times do you eat out? How many times do you go shopping? How many times do you go out? Again, it's not to hinder you. 50-30-20 rule, right? It's okay to do these things. I'm not saying it's not. I go out, I eat out, I go shopping. I just don't do it at the rate that I used to do it, right? I do it in moderation, delayed gratification. It feels better when I go shopping. It feels better when I eat out. It feels better when I'm able to go out because I don't do it as much. And I understand that doing it at the rate I did was costing me hundreds of dollars and, potentially thousands of dollars if I would have just put it in the market. So, going to that 50, 30, 20 rule, it's like, that frees up room for you to do stuff and still have fun while still, building for your future. I'm done paying for my past. I don't want to keep paying for my past. I want to get that out the way so I can start building my future. Do you have, again, going back to, do you have any debt? If you don't have any debt, that's a perfect time to still put in money. Like, what are we doing with our money here? We're just blowing all our money. I get it. I did it. Like, we're young. They don't teach this stuff in school. Not a lot of, our parents may teach us about saving, but they don't teach us about investing. And a lot of them may not even teach us about saving because they don't know how to save. So it's going to be forever cycle, right? It's going to be for an ever cycle. So we have to find a way to break that cycle so we can start building generational wealth, because it takes a village, to build that generational wealth. It's not just you, because you need to have that carry on. So if I'm able to show my kids what I did and able to show them, what they can do as well, and do it their own way. You don't have to do it my way. Do what works for you. As long as you're doing something, like as long as you're putting something aside, do it your own way. But, going back to it, it's like, yeah, it sounds rough, but a lot of us are starting to live with the parents now. Like a lot of the, generations after me, my, people who are around my brother's age, younger brothers' ages, a lot of them are sticking at their parents' houses. And if you're living rent free and you don't have to pay for groceries or nothing like that, like you are really wasting the opportunity to take that money and really, really build yourself up. Because by the time you come my age, that's a 7-year hold. Like if you start when you're even 21, like at my age, that's a 7-year hold. You do that consistently over 7 years, man. Like when you are ready to move and get your own house at 30, like I said, you already got your down payment, or you already got the money to cover your furniture for your new house. Like, so, it's all about just being smart with your money and, having the knowledge and understanding that, these are things I can do now to build these habits. So that way, when I have to do it, because you're going to have to do it, it's just second nature. All right, so I know I talked on the show before about Dave Ramsey's survey for millionaires. So Dave Ramsey, if you don't know, if you haven't checked into the channel before, one of the most accurate surveys for millionaires is Dave Ramsey's. He interviews thousands of millionaires, and he gets the most information, and he usually collects the best data when it comes to surveying millionaires. So what did they actually find out? I'm only putting this in here because I thought it was interesting, because we're going back to how much you have to make. Well, it looks like here, the top list of millionaires off this surveys was a CPA, a lawyer, teachers, and then followed by doctor, tech, and IT. So I found that interesting because everything I just laid out sounds like an industry where they make really good money. They do. You're a doctor, you make really good money. Tech, you make really good money. A lawyer, you're most likely making really good money. A CPA, you're most likely making good money. But one thing I found out that really stood out to me was teachers, right? Because like for teachers, the biggest thing is that they don't make enough, right? For teachers, the biggest thing is that we feel like they should make more. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, the average salary for teachers is probably not near the average salary as a doctor. So how are they able to, outpace doctors when it comes to producing millionaires? Here's the thing. The median salary for a teacher in the USA right now is around $65K per year. According to Fidelity, the median salary in the USA in general is around $62K a year. So they only, on average, make $3,000 more than the normal worker in America making $62K per year as the median. So they take the median because people make too much. Like if you go up in the millions, like it will skyrocket. So the median gives you a true value because it kind of brings it in the middle, and it kind of gives you a better idea of how much money, how many people make X amount of money. Sorry, but so they only make $3,000 more on average per year. So how do they produce so many millionaires? And I got to thinking, well, if you think about it, being a teacher, you have to be structurally sound and you have to be disciplined to be a good teacher, right? So there's a lot of structure, a lot of discipline, and a lot of habits that you have to build to be a good teacher, to actually make impact, right? That's the same thing when it comes to finances. So it goes hand in hand. So when I was thinking about it, I'm like, maybe they're just really good, just making sure that they're just putting their money aside because they have the knowledge. They may have the knowledge, or they are just really responsible with how they handle their money. Because like I said, how we're saying, how much do you have to make? Like I said, $3,000 more, but yet they're producing millionaires left and right. Like, how are they doing that? Because teachers are disciplined. Well, good teachers are disciplined, and their game plan that they deliver year in year out. So to me now, it's not as surprising that that would kind of translate when it comes to finances. All right, so before we close out, understanding that starting in your early 20s, it's not easy. You know, you got expensive housing, expensive groceries, prices keep going up. But I'm 28 now, and I've heard that throughout all my 20s. And guess what? It's going to keep going up. So at the end of the day, you need to position yourself to be ready to buy no matter what. And that takes time to build. So that's why starting early on in your 20s is the perfect way to build that egg nest, right? So you hear people say all the time, "Oh, they're young. They're young. They got time." It's an excuse. It's an excuse. You do have time, and you young, but don't use that as an excuse to just get through, just to get through easily because you got your parents' house. Don't use that because you're actually having the wrong idea. You are young, and that's the perfect time to invest because when you are ready to move out, you're not going to be under mommy and daddy's roof forever. So when you are ready to move out, you have something in your savings, you have something in your investment vehicles to get you started. And I promise you that'd be a whole lot comfortable than having nothing at all. Because as I mentioned earlier in the video, especially if you're buying a house, it's expensive. Not even just the mortgage, but the upkeep in the house as well. It's expensive. So to me, just the nuggets I dropped in there, if your parents are paying your rent, they're paying the mortgage and you're not, you're living rent free. If they're paying your phone bill, your insurance, like whatever bill your parents are paying for, you're not taking a fraction of that or all of that and putting it aside into a saving or into investing. You're fumbling your bag. You really fumbling your bag. Because if you start doing that, even when you're 18, 20, 21, like even if you start doing this at an early age, by the time you get ready to move out or by the time you get to my age, like, if you started at 21, you're already 7 years in. How many dips have you noticed in the 7 years? I guarantee you, throughout these past 7 years, you had COVID. You had what we had earlier. You had a dip earlier this year that was similar to COVID when Trump was announcing those tariffs. So buying those dips gives you more shares, which over time is going to give you more dividends. And if you keep doing that, if you keep putting money in regularly, you're also adding your own contribution to it. So if you bought those dips from when you were 21 to now, even if you were doing $25 at a time, you were sitting pretty. I guarantee you were. I can only imagine your returns. Matter of fact, let me see. I'm gonna check right now. I'm gonna sit here and I'm actually gonna check the return that the S&P's had for the past 5 years. So the S&P 500 index, a 5-year period, had, if you invested 5 years ago, you're seeing a return right now of 115.7%. 115.17%. That is the return that you're seeing. That's why it's important to start when you're young. You have over 100% return on your money. So think about that. Like that's insane. Like you have 100% return over your money over a 5-year period. That's so wild to me. So that's the power of what I was saying earlier about fractional shares. You can get, I have a whole video on fractional shares and dividends. This is why you need to start young, right? So you need to do your research. Just don't, even me, right? I can sit here and tell you VOO all I want. You still need to take that and do your research, because you still need to understand what you're getting into. And you still need to understand that this is your money that you're putting in, right? So there is risk. There is a level of risk to that. Your habits will make you more money than your base salary. Guarantee you. Your habits is going to make you way more money than your salary. And lastly, pride is the devil. So in order to learn, you need to learn from others. You need to be open-minded. You have to do your research. When someone tell you something, you still want to, do your research. But a lot of these people who are there, they're there for a reason. They got there, right? So you don't have to talk to the biggest well-known person in the world. You don't have to talk to someone famous. You could talk to someone who's just an average Joe who just goes out and stacks their bread and then shows you how to stack their bread, right? So that's the thing. Again, do your own research on that. But it doesn't matter how much you make at the end of the day. You can still build your budget and put something aside. Now, everyone's situation's a little different. So if you really are in a pickle, get you a financial advisor. Go get you a professional who can really start helping you get out that trap. Because, at one point, I want to give my time back to my family. And the only way I can do that is to keep building what I'm building here. So thank y'all for the love and support. I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all Tuesday.